Welcome back to the Bold Calls Fantasy Football Show. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, DFS Army contributor Chris Felicetta. Chris and I are going to be talking about all of the NFL training camp news and notes and how it's going to affect your fantasy football drafts. Let's do this. Chris, how's it going? Welcome to the program.
Not bad, man. Everything is going great. Dead in the middle of draft season. Fired off at least four or five today. I am up to date on all the latest ADPs and ready to talk about it.
That's just fantastic. It's funny. We were joking before the show started here that, we know a few degenerates that play in these different contests, but how many contests are you up to now? You said over 400?
I did the count today because I figured you might ask. 459 on my total best ball entries as of tonight. As if I snuck one more in before we got started. I'm 459.
Good Lord. Well, and so you are part of the Underdog Cardio Club. Is that an official thing, or is that something you kind of
it's kind of cool. Like about 2 months ago, Pete Overzet, who you probably know is on a million different streams, is one of their brand ambassadors. Came up with this. I think him and Nick Rudman, who's kind of like one of the front facing guys for Underdog. And they did a thing where if you just posted your lineup, with the hashtag Underdog Cardio when you were doing a run or a bike at the gym or whatever, if you did that 7 times, you'd get a free t-shirt. So I'm like, fine, I do cardio pretty much every day anyway. So, it's a fun thing, post your draft. But then they told you after it was all completed that you also got raked back on any Best Ball Mania entry you did. So that every $25 Best Ball Mania entry, you're getting, if you're in this Underdog Cardio Club, you're getting $3 back every day. So I didn't know I'd be doing the Underdog Cardio Club every day until the draft filled. But it turned into just doing 7 and having some fun posting it to that's a serious, rake back on a $25 contest is a real legit promo. So I don't mind throwing out my runs every morning with a draft.
Well, what you do is you take that $3 back and then you go enter just a slow draft $3 contest and you're double dipping. It's perfect.
Yeah. Or today, this is just an example of how big Best Ball is getting. They released a $3 Pomeranian contest, they called it, and it was 16,000 people and it filled within 3 hours. It filled about 3.5 hours. They did it. And they're right now, as we're talking, they launched a Superflex one tonight at $3, 15 max. And it'll fill probably before we go to bed. It's crazy.
That's insane. So for those of you who are avid listeners of the show, as you know, go over to Underdog. If you have not deposited before, you can get a $100 deposit match up to $100. Just use code DFS Army. There's a link in the description below. And of course, if you want to follow along and check out Chris's drafts and you want to judge him for them or give him kudos, it's just at Chris Felicetta, right? Just your first last name.
Well, that's me on Twitter. Yeah. So you can, stupidly on Underdog, my name is Uncle Mayweather's. It's an old from one of my season-long teams that I like going back to the 90s. But yeah, if on Twitter it's Chris Felicetta. That's what I post under on DFS Army too. So you could see all the cardio club dress and everything I'm doing on there at Chris Felicetta.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So one of the things we like about Underdog is just the fact that they are so quick to reflect the change in ADPs just based off of their software. It's one of the reasons we love to use them and we like to be a partner with them. Question I have to ask for you though is you're in the heat of it. You're doing well over 400 drafts. You're a maniac, but this is a time of year we are so overcome with information. What is your approach when you hear, Romeo Doubs is the greatest player in Green Bay history, or George Pickens is the second coming of Jesus Christ? How do you sift through that information and actually use it as actionable when you're doing your drafts?
I really, excuse me, I really try to take it on a case-by-case basis. And that's one of the benefits of I started in the Best Ball Mania contest the day it opened. And, you're getting some crazy values relative to where things are now. I looked at the first draft I did before we got on here, and George Pickens went in round 15. I did the Underdog Cardio Club draft I did this morning in the same tournament. He went in the 5th round, which is absurd. I mean, that's ridiculous. He goes more recently, more 10th, 11th round, which I think is still probably a little rich and speculative, but I can understand that. But like, people are crazy. People react to the latest news. And I think you just have to sift through it and see what you believe and what you don't. I think the most famous example of that is last year with Jamar Chase, when he apparently couldn't catch a football. Like the white stripes on the football were inhibiting him from catching it. This was a guy who won the Biletnikoff Award at 19 years old or whatever it was. So I completely faded that information. But now I am getting a little George Pickens, and I'm not going to go crazy, because in a tournament like that, like, there's a lot of people, like, I have a lot of round 15, round 14, round 13 shares. And on the other side, I kind of was slow to react to Romeo Doubs. So I'm not going to take a lot of Romeo Doubs in like the 9th or 10th round when there's already been 200,000 people that drafted and have him in the 17th and 18th round. I just feel like I'm going to have a hard time making up that value if Romeo Doubs hits, you know?
That's actually, that's a really sharp comment. It's something that the Geek and I talk about all the time. It's just the fact that when you're doing just an individual standalone best ball contest, ADPs relative to where they were a month ago really don't matter, because you're just going up against 11 of your best friends, right?
Exactly.
But where in these tournaments where they've been open for months and months and the values have shifted, I mean, even think of like, the higher caloric players like Alvin Kamara. He was going mid to late 3rd round when there was that suspension looming. I saw him going to draft in the early round 2, which, to be honest, that might even be good value right now. So
I got a couple shares of him in the early 4th round when that was going on. Like, and that's, I think, in a tournament like that, where you have to beat 460 whatever thousand people, speculate. Like, you got to think, I'm probably not winning anyway with this entry, so take a little bit of a chance, have a more aggressive approach. And that's definitely, I'm playing for upside with every draft and almost every pick I do. And that's something I've learned from mistakes in the past. Like, I think last year I had way too much Gio Bernard, just thinking, okay, he's a safe pick. He's going to, get me 10 points. He's going to get some receptions, cover my buys or injuries. That 10 points that he even speculatively could get you is not going to help you in week 17 when you're trying to win $1 million. Like, the wise move was to be taking the more risky play on, say, Penny, who is obviously much more speculative than Gio. He has much longer history of injury. We didn't even know if he'd be around in week 17, but he wound up being the nuts that you need. So this year, I'm taking more chances like that, dudes that I think can actually have a big effect if things go right for them, than the safe, like, floor plays.
Especially in tournaments, you got to play for that upside. Just hammer upside on your bench. Don't, like, none of these boring ass 10, 11 points per week. That's not going to move the needle at all to win a tournament. No. We were talking about Romeo Doubs. We were talking about George Pickens. Let's talk about rookies a little bit, because we love rookies. We were all in dynasty leagues. Who are some of the rookies this year that you've got some of the most exposures to, or maybe you were slower to buy into and now you're starting to get more shares of? Is there anybody that jumps out at you?
Yeah. Right off the bat, my highest exposure player on Underdog is Damian Pierce. I've been drafting Damian Pierce since the contest opened, and he's had a hot preseason. The first game, he looked really good. But the way I was looking at it is, all he has to do is beat out Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead. And this is a dude like that I listen to you and Brandon and Michael Dickinson and these guys, because I don't watch a ton of college football. Like, I kind of like let my girlfriend have Saturdays for the most part, because I'm like Sundays, Mondays, Thursday nights are out of the question. So it's like I kind of give her Saturdays. So I rely on guys like you and Allen and people that really like put the time in and grind it. And I know a lot of sharp people thought this guy had the more talent than his numbers indicated at Florida, because he was kind of in a committee and the coach didn't play him as much as he should. And then he gets out there and looks awesome. And I'm just like, he's going to beat out Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead. So that he's my highest exposure running back right now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons we love Damian Pierce was, for one, I mean, my first, like, when I'm really diving into the offseason is the Senior Bowl. And he was one of the one of the standout players at the Senior Bowl, along with Rashad White. Those were two of the best players, but it's a hyper efficiency, right? So again, we'll bring up the stat again. So on 100 attempts last year, 100 attempts, okay, 574 yards and 13 touchdowns. And he could also catch the ball, 19 receptions for 216 yards. It's just an absolutely insane efficiency level that, to be honest with you, we assume is not going to be sustainable. And then he goes out in the preseason game and puts up over 9 yards per carry. So I don't know. Maybe this guy's Superman, but realistically, it's going to reverse back to the mean. We are preaching caution a little bit because the Houston Texans in general probably aren't going to be that good of a team this year. If they get 5 or 6 wins, that'll probably be a good thing. So just that, that touchdown opportunity may not be there. But
it's not going to be there like someone with like Lenny who in a good offense. But yeah, I do think that where he's going in the 10th, 11th round now, like he's a smash to me. He's
an absolute smash. Players. What about the wide receivers? I mean, Drake London, he had the leg injury, which it sounds like it's not going to be a big deal, but he's going to miss a little bit of practice time. Obviously, we know Treylon Burks has had the issues with the breathing, and he's the best player. He's the best rookie. Oh, he's the worst. He's playing with the third teams. Like,
I don't buy into that. I've been hammering. I think we're getting a discount there. I think he was one of my highest owned players as well. because you can get him now in the 10th round. And I think, what did they spend an 18th overall pick on him? Trade away AJ Brown. He might start off slow, but look what Amon-Ra St. Brown did last year. Like, he was a necessary player to advance in the playoffs of these contests. He won people their leagues. So I think that Treylon's going to come on late. He's got his only real target competition is Bobby Trees, who I love, but he's a million years old and coming off an ACL, and Austin Hooper, who, he's a nice tight end, but Treylon Burks is by far the most talented pass catcher on that team. And I think where you're getting him now, occasionally in the 10th round, 9th, 10th round, I think there's only really upside there.
No, I agree with you. I mean, as you know, we've been super high on Treylon Burks pretty much this entire time. How do you feel about Kadarius Toney? How do you feel about Chris Olave at this moment? Because Michael Thomas, the hype is continuing, man. Apparently he's going to be ready for the start of the season.
That's a tricky situation. Like, that's one of my fades. Michael Thomas is one of my fades that I'm a little bit scared about now, because I just didn't believe that after not playing for 2.5 years and now having to contend with Olave, having to contend with Landry for targets, that he would, if he's even able to come back, that he would be himself again. So I wasn't buying him in the 7th and 8th round when he was available there. So now that he looks great and everybody's hyped up on him, he's going the 5th. I'm not really getting. I'm just, if Michael Thomas is who you need to win it, I'm probably going to be in trouble this year. I love Olave, and you could get Olave again, like probably 2 or 3 rounds later than Thomas. I don't have a ton of him because just the way I have a decent amount of Olave, but he's not one of my biggest stands. A rookie that I've been slow to warm up to, but I've really started been drafting heavily lately is Taekwon Thornton.
Oh, now you're talking my language as a Patriots fan.
This dude, going into the draft season, I was kind of off the Patriots. I'm like, there's too many chefs in the kitchen. They've got 4 different running backs. You have to contend with 5 different running backs. They've got a million receivers. I don't know who's going to get targeted. But as we've seen camp go on, I think it's kind of cleared out that Ramondre Stevenson is the best. I think he's the best talent they have at running back. And I love him. And he kind of goes in that 9th, 10th round. Now he's moving into the 8th round. He's moved up a little bit on the steam. But Taekwon Thornton, this guy you could still get in the 17th, 18th round.
He's
free. Like, he could be this year's Amon-Ra St. Brown, the receiver who's absolutely free. And he ran a 4.28. And he's 6'3", and I thought he was like skinny because he's only listed at 185. But when I watched him in that preseason game the other night, I don't know if he's bulked up or they list him too low. He looks like a beast. He looks like a physical 6'3", and that runs a 4.28. Like, I like him much better. I have no Devontae Parker. Who I think is good, but can you trust him to be healthy? Like, Kendrick Bourne's a nice player, but he's, kind of a possession guy. Like, I don't mind him where he goes. I'm not taking any Nelson Aguilar. Like, I think by the end of the season, Taekwon Thornton could be the best receiver on New England, and you're getting him in the 17th, 18th round right now. Yeah,
I gotta admit, I'm scared of the Patriots for a lot of the reasons you mentioned, but also just based on the fact that Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, neither of which are really offensive minds.
No,
we don't know who's going to be calling plays. Like, it's funny. A reporter asked Bill Belichick just this week. He said, "Is it a competition?" And Belichick, how he is, he just kind of laughs it off. He's like, "I could get into it. I could explain it, but we don't have time for that right now." It's like, Bill, just explain it, man. We know exactly what's happening. It's just It's so wild. I will say, Jacoby Myers was kind of my guy that I was going for.
Yeah.
Again, you get him in like the 11th or 12th round, but apparently Devontae Parker is getting some chemistry with Mac Jones in the red zone. And for best balls, I mean, it's kind of touchdown or bust at that range. So if I'm getting any exposure at this point, I think, back-to-back pretty much Devontae Parker and Jacoby Myers. But I might have to take some stock into that because, I mean, look, they spent the second-round pick. But can I just go on a slight little rant here, Chris?
Of course, man.
So we all saw that long ass touchdown to Danny Gray of the San Francisco 49ers. Okay. He runs a 4.33 40-yard dash, blazing fast speed. Okay. They got him at the end of the third round. So what the hell are the Patriots doing getting this situational field stretcher in your early second when players like Sky Moore are still available? Like, to me, it doesn't make any sense. And I mean, even George Pickens went after Taekwon Thornton 2 picks after. So
I think people hated the Taekwon Thornton pick because he went after Pickens and Sky
Pickens.
Moore. Yeah, like that like those dudes I think are much more complete players, and you can see it in their draft stock. Like Sky Moore goes in the 8th round, the 7th round in that range. Pickens is now up to the 10th round, but I think Thornton's sneaky just because it's a dart. Like who in the 17th round, he's got the speed that if he catches one bomb from Mac Jones, who apparently looks great, was fighting people did you read that headline today? How he was fighting Brian Burns in practice. He said some
I didn't see that. No,
but I love it. Taekwon Thornton hit like a 60-yard touchdown for Mac Jones today or something, and then Matt Jones said some real inappropriate shit to Brian Burns, and they got in a fist fight over it. But I like that, man. I mean, I'm not a Patriot fan, but at this point I'm a Taekwon Thornton fan, so I like it.
Well, Chris, you're a sharp fantasy football mind, so I think I'm going to have to bake a little bit of Taekwon Thornton into my portfolio as we continue the draft season. So let's get into some of these team questions because there's a lot of question marks about some of these teams, whether they're going to be good, whether we're projecting to be good. But let's talk to start with the Detroit Lions. Okay. They're kind of an enigma this year. I mean, the Lions are the Lions, but yet you look at the team on paper, and other than Jared Goff, it's a pretty stacked offensive core. Obviously, TJ Hawkinson, DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown. How do you feel about the Detroit Lions this year?
I like the Lions. I'm getting a lot of Swift. I mean, if you look what Swift had done in the 11 games he was healthy before getting injured, and then they had no, incentive to rush him back. They were essentially tanking at that point. I think he is one of the most complete, dangerous, explosive backs in the NFL. And they have one of the most underrated offensive lines in the league. I think Ross Tucker, who's like a former offensive lineman who does the rankings for his site, said they were a second or third best line in the league. And Swift, he just needs a little sliver of daylight and he can turn it into a big play. So I've been taking a ton of him in the second round. Like almost every second round pick is Saquon, Swift, or Javonte for me. Like depending on who's there and where I'm picking. Like those are the 3 guys I'm just hammering in the second round.
I like that. I don't know if you saw, but that DeAndre Swift touchdown in the preseason game a few days back, he got hit right on that same shoulder where he injured. So just the fact that he didn't seem to blink an eye at it, it was a bit of a sigh of relief. It looks like he's fully healthy. And man, when that guy's healthy, he's going to be an absolute monster.
And he's bulked up. It looked like he's added some weight this year. Hopefully that helps him stay on the field and absorb the punishment a little better to have more of a full role and not have to be subbed out as much. But
I mean, you got to assume Jamal Williams is going to have a role in the offense. But at the end of the day, like Swift, he's so talented. They're going to want to give him the vast majority of the touches, I would say. What about TJ Hawkinson? He seems to have lost a little bit of the luster. I mean, he keeps letting fantasy managers down. I officially, because Brandon has been nipping at my heels saying, you got to put Dallas Goedert above Hawk. You got to do it. I'm just like, Brandon, I can't do it. I won't do it. Hawkinson's just an elite talent. But then between that and listening to our friend Alan Slazowski over on the RotoWire show, they talked about just the advantage of not so much that Hawkinson's bad, but just the fact that Dallas Goedert is going to be very good this year. I did it. I did it just yesterday.
That's a close one. I've gotten more Hawkins. I mean, more Goddard because I take more Jalen Hurts. Like anytime, like if I get an AJ Brown in the 3rd round, then I take Jalen Hurts in the 6th, and then if Hawk is there, if Goddard's there in the 8th, that's a nice double stack. So that I don't draft a lot of tight end in that range. I'm like way overweight Kelsey. That's kind of just been my stance on tight end. Like I've been way overweight Kelsey. I've been getting a good amount of Pitts in the 3rd when I don't have Kelsey, and then I'm usually waiting. But I have been taking some Goddard as a part of stacks. I've taken a little bit of Hawkinson as a part of stacks. Like if I want to just really go in on Detroit, and I like Goff as like Goff goes, like maybe the 30th at quarterback. Like he's probably like QB 29, 30. Like, and I think with the talent they've got, especially if Jameson Williams comes back second half of the year and gives them something, I think Goff can be useful as a second, 3rd quarterback in best ball or super flex.
He's certainly competent. So I'm just checking the latest Underdog ADPs. Looks like he's going at QB 25, but at 191 overall. Like that's the end of the draft, right? When you talk about 215 odd picks. So, same deal. He's basically free. If you want to just totally punt your second QB, Jared Goff's completely acceptable. Really what I want to ask you about though, Chris, is how do you feel about Amon-Ra St. Brown? He's currently going as a wide receiver 31, ADP 60. Is that a nice little sweet spot?
I think it is. I was a little slow to draft Amon-Ra at the start of the draft season, just because I thought I didn't realize how long that Williams was probably going to be out, and then the more I just read about Amon-Ra in camp, it just seems like he's a leader on that team. It seems like even as a young player, like he's the dude that's like they're catching 200 balls at the jugs machine after practice. He earned those targets last year, even though Swift was out, Hawkinson was out. Like you don't see a lot of rookie 4th round wide receivers come in and produce like that. So where he goes, like he's generally, what is he like 6th round? I don't have the Underdog ADP up in front of me, but I think
he's going at 60 overall.
Okay,
so right around the 5-6 turn.
5-6 turn, yeah. He's right in that range with Mooney and Godwin. Like those are the guys you always is I feel like the decision point you have there, whether it's like Amon-Ra, Mooney, and Godwin. So those are I'm getting shares of all 3 of them, but I have no problem taking Amon-Ra there at cost.
That's a sweet spot. Yeah, to be honest, I've avoided Chris Godwin. I wrote an article really at the start of the season before we had any injury update. I'm still a little bit reluctant to draft him.
I've only started recently. Like I was like, I remember reading your article and being like, he's right. I am not taking any Godwin. But as we've seen him back on the practice field, I think because you're all the money in these contests. Like if I'm drafting in my home league, a dynasty, I'm probably not even going to risk it with Godwin. But like all the money is in the prize pool is divvied out week 17. So it's like if Godwin's firing at 100% against, I think they play the Carolina Panthers. So that's not an intimidating defense. Like Brady might throw it for 5 touchdowns, 2 of them to Godwin. He could be like, and I don't think he's going to crush during the season, but for a late 5th, early 6th round pick, I think he'll be fine for you. And if he heats up that week 15 through 17, like you're golden. So
do you take kind of the same approach for DeAndre Hopkins?
No, I haven't taken any Hopkins, or very little. Like I think on a couple of like second pieces of a Kyler stack, but like you're guaranteed. The first 6 weeks gone. I think Hollywood Brown might come in and just kind of take over the number 1 role. And Hopkins wasn't great last year. Like he kind of he started off hot, but he fell off. Like I don't. When a guy's a bit older, and I don't think he's washed, but once they start going over that cliff a little bit, I don't think a lot of guys pull it back up. I'm always trying to find somebody's best season, like their breakout season, rather than like hope that they find the fountain of youth. And especially because you're not getting that big of a discount considering he's missing 6 games. Like I feel like he still goes like 7th, 8th round maybe.
Yeah, he goes with wide receiver 36, 73 overall. I have him baked in as wide receiver 49. So if you're following our sheets, you're probably not going to get Hopkins.
You're not getting any Hopkins.
No. And I'm
There's
okay with that.
Somebody willing to jump him.
That's just it. There's always somebody in a draft room that says, "Oh, this Hopkins upside is just absolutely massive." But I mean, it is, and I love Hopkins. He's been one of my favorite players to watch forever. I mean, anybody who likes football probably likes the way that DeAndre Hopkins plays football. But I mean, Father Time is undefeated, missing the first 6 games because of PEDs. Like that's, writing's kind of on the wall in that sense. So that's worrisome. But I don't know. I mean, if you want to take him, I don't hate it at his ADP. Like 73 is not going to sink your ship, but it's just there's so many other better choices. It's still a high value pick.
And another like age fade that I have like that is Keenan Allen. Like, and I love Keenan Allen. He's one of my favorite players, but he's going in the 3rd round, like the middle of the 3rd round. I looked at his last 2 seasons. He had, I think, 900 something yards and 8 touchdowns, and then 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. Like neither of those 2 seasons would justify where he's being drafted now. Like, are you really expecting him to improve on that significantly in his age 30 season? Because I think that's unrealistic. Like, I'm not getting any Keenan Allen this year.
Yeah, I haven't baked in right around his ADP. I think it's fine just because that offense is going to be electric. And, especially Underdog's obviously 0.5 PPR, but especially in full PPR contests, that's where his value is.
Better. Yeah, I'm not taking any of them on Underdog. Like if you wanted to go DraftKings full PPR, I think you could get away with it. And DraftKings, just to change the subject a little bit, DraftKings is very soft. Like you can pretty much make any lineup you want at DraftKings. Do you see a lot of crazy stuff? Like you'll see, I was at a draft today where Tyler Conklin went in the 5th round, like
5th round.
So it's like you get a lot of just like casual people that don't really understand the format that are just like, on DraftKings to bet or to do DFS and just or mess around and it's soft. So you can kind of craft your teams the way you want. I mean, you're going to be up against a lot of sharp teams when you make the playoffs, but so there's going to be a lot of like stacked teams. But if you want to build a Chargers stack and you want to focus it on Keenan Allen, you'll be able to find additional ways to supplement that, like a couple rounds later in the draft. So
I haven't done any Underdog or any DraftKings ones yet. I think I got to jump in. Last year, this is actually right around the time where I jumped into DraftKings, and I kind of just hammered DraftKings for the last couple of weeks. I stopped on Underdog because now there's more people, plus there's the Sharks and Underdog, and I really flipped over to DraftKings, and I found it was quite successful. So I think I got to make that switch. Let's move on to the Rams. Okay, Cam Akers to me seems like a steal as the RB19. ADP 46. I mean, Darrell Henderson, he's a fine player, but we remember Cam Akers for what he was. And yet we're going to hold it against him, the fact that he came back early from the Achilles, didn't look super explosive in the playoffs last year, and now we're just completely fading him. Like he's defective or effectively in the dead zone. But the Rams, where they were the number 1 team in terms of touchdowns scored through the air at 80% of their touchdowns. That's going to regress this year, which means they're probably going to need to rely on the run more. Problem is, Cam Akers is hurt, and so is Darrell Henderson right now. So
yeah, I noticed that today.
It's old news. So, I mean, am I crazy here to say Cam Akers is a value?
I think you're going to get a chance in the next few days. That news will push him down a little bit. Like you're going to be able to get him in the 5th and maybe even 6th round. So at that point, it's like you just take that and think that he's only going to get better as the season goes on. As you said, it's a great offense. They should be a little more run heavy just on like natural regression in the red zone. So I have no problem taking Cam Akers. I don't have a ton of them, but like I have a fair amount of them. I'm probably like on the field. I'm not like a strong like overweight or by no means fading him.
Yeah, if he falls to you at the right spot, you're going to grab him.
Yeah,
you're not going to go to your way to reach on him. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way with him, to be honest with you, because, I mean, the Rams as a whole, I mean, Stafford's got the shoulder. It sounds like he's been a full participant.
Yeah, I'm not letting that scare me off of Cooper Kupp or A-Rob. I'm drafting them as if Stafford's good to go.
Yeah, so I'm on record of saying that I'm lower than the field on Allen Robinson. Kevin and I have a bet. I think it's that he's going to finish as wide receiver 23 or worse. I have moved him up because, at some point you have to just kind of trust the masses. And I'm still a little behind weight on him, but I have him at pick 40 overall.
Yeah, I'm underweight on him just relative to where he goes, but he's one of the ones that scares me. Like listening to you guys debate it got me like thinking a little bit that maybe I needed some more. And Also, just everything that's come out of camp has been fantastic about him. Like,
I
went in slow on him because I had him in a lot of leagues last year and he was terrible. And like, I'm like, is he washed? But like, I didn't want to buy the argument that he's just not trying because he's on a crappy team. Like, that doesn't really speak well to his character to begin with. So it's like, I was a little burnt by last year and was slow, but I've started picking up some more of them as we go, just because now, especially as Van Jefferson's been banged up, if they get Odell back, it's not going to be for, probably 8 weeks, 10 weeks, maybe into the season. I think that's going to be a very concentrated target tree there and for the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, so in 2021, obviously it was a complete debacle. In 2020, he had 151 targets and finished as a wide receiver 13 in fantasy points per game. And then in 2019, he had 153 targets and finished as wide receiver 9. So he's going to need the volume, and I'm not sure he's going to get that volume. That's why I'm just not quite as bullish on him. Now, I'm pretty sure the only guy on the planet that is that's really worried about it, because you listen to all these other
everybody loves him.
They're just loving Allen Robinson. So
I'm underweight on him as it is, but I'm a little worried about it. Just as good as he's looked at camp, and the fact that so many smart people think he's a smash this year.
Yeah, I would say if somebody was to ask me, what is the player you're most afraid about being wrong about? And it's Allen Robinson. The thing is that, you're still going to get a solid player, whoever you draft. If say you fade Allen Robinson and you go with somebody who's going around him in that ADP range, like, you're still going to get a solid player.
Yeah. Like, I'm getting a lot of Jerry Judy in that range, like Cortland Sutton, Jerry Judy.
Sutton. Yeah.
It's weird. I'm on a weird streak of where I just get picks in the back half of the round. Just randomly, obviously the last week or so. So I've been getting like taking a ton of Kelsey in the first round, then Saquon or Swift in the second round, and then usually like ETN or someone like that in the third, and then just a Cortland Sutton or a Judy in the fourth, and then Mahomes in the fifth. Like, I think Mahomes is undervalued right now. Like, I think of what the floor that he's built in, and their playoff schedule is so soft. Like, they play indoors at Houston week 15. They host what will probably be a tanking Seattle team week 16. And then they have a shootout potentially for the division title or playoff position versus Denver in week 17, the championship, when the money's on the line. So it's like, I don't think you could craft a better schedule. And they're easy stacks to make, because Mahomes goes in the fifth and everybody other than Kelsey goes after him. And I think even the price on the Denver guys, you could pick your Denver receiver in the fourth round, fourth round, and to run it back with. So I've been doing a lot of that.
Yeah, you're definitely getting a decent price on those players. If you had to choose, are you going Sutton or Judy?
I think I'm kind of splitting the baby here. Like, I think I'm going more Sutton on Underdog, which is half point PPR, thinking he'll be the bigger player, more of the red zone target, kind of the DK Metcalf for Russ, and that Judy will be more of the kind of possession guy. So in the full point DraftKings scoring, I've been getting a little more of Judy.
That makes sense.
So,
let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, so this year, objectively, they're way worse this year. Mike's boy Desmond Ridder had he had a decent preseason game, so respect to that. But whether it's Marcus Mariota, whether it's Desmond Ridder, I'm worried about the Atlanta Falcons. How do you feel about Kyle Pitts going as tight end 3, ADP 32 overall? I mean, to me, that's a fair deal for the upside. But what's your take on that?
I'm definitely getting some Pitts. Like, I think he has a ceiling that no other tight end, I think, other than Kelsey and Mark Andrews have. So, like I said, I'm drafting these tournaments. I'm trying to win it. Like, I'm not taking safe plays, and I think he had over 1,000 yards as a 21-year-old tight end. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, it's unprecedented. Like, only Ditka had more tight end yards as a rookie, and he's not even really a tight. Like, you can use him as a tight end, obviously, but he's split out more than he's actually in line as a tight end or in the slot. Like, he's the number one passing option there. And I think like a 6'6" athletic freak like that is not going to run as bad on touchdowns as he did last year. So I'm fine with Pitts in the third round. Like, I'm getting a lot more Kelsey, just the way my drafts have been falling lately. But I'm definitely overweight on Pitts too. Like, they're both like in my top 5 tight ends owned.
Okay, so you've got Kelsey, you've got Pitts, and then you've got a lot of Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, I've got some Goddard, and the cheaper guys too that I've been pairing. Like just once it gets down towards the end of the draft, I'm taking like just trying to stack or just have a second player that works in with like a correlation in like week 16, 17. So I'm getting some Ingram, some Fant, some Higbee, stuff like that. But my main two guys that I'm targeting is Kelsey and Pitts.
Yeah, I like that. For me, if you kind of miss that, like that Dallas Goedert, TJ Hawkinson tier, I like to wait and get Cole Kmet because I think he's probably going to have a very similar range of outcomes versus Pat Freiermuth or even Dawson Knox. But if you fade the hell out of tight end, Ty Conklin, unless he's going in 5th round, he's generally available there.
No, you're right.
Sounds like
last round. He's undrafted most of the leagues. I mean, he's been getting a little bit of steam to at least he is like an 18th round pick now, a last round pick. But like probably, and there's an added advantage to that. Like a player like him who in like the Best Ball Mania contest where there's already been 250,000 teams drafted, up until last week, he wasn't getting drafted at all. So you're trying to build a unique team. So if half the field is not even going to have Tyler Conklin as an option, like if you, the chance of if you get to week 17, if you make it to the finals, there's not going to be a lot of Tyler Conklin. There's just statistically half the chance that he's even going to be owned. So that gives you a more unique option. So I think there's an added benefit to a player like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with Zach Wilson being out for at least looks like a month, it sounded like the surgery went well. There's nothing quote that they didn't expect with the surgery, so that's good news. But he was starting to show rapport with Ty Conklin, and so you wonder how Joe Flacco's going to do it at the start of the season. But to your point, we're banking on weeks 15, 16, 17.
Yeah, and with Conklin's your 18th round pick, like who are you? You're comparing him against like Daniel Bellinger from the Giants or like Trey McBride. It's pretty much a dart throw. Like at that point, I'm trying to make stacks. Like when I'm picking my second, third tight end, I'm trying to pair it with my second or third quarterback and just shoot for upside there.
Yeah, no, absolutely fair enough. Let's move on to the Seahawks. News came down today. Well, good news is Penny's returned to practice. Okay, that's a positive. Let's go glass half full to start. Sweet, beautiful baby Kenneth Walker. He's dealing with a hernia issue, whatever that means. That's worrisome, man.
It's funny because it's like I grew up wrestling and like run marathons in my adulthood, and wrestled through college. So I've had all these injuries. Like I've had the same surgery. Zach Wilson had 3 ties. I had 3 meniscus surgeries. Wow. I've had the sports hernia surgery. That was an easy one. That was probably the easiest surgery I had in my whole life. Like I was in and out same day and like felt great, was like running full within 2 weeks. Like, I don't think that like, obviously I'm not a world-class athlete like these guys who just perform at that level, but like that was a really easy procedure for me. But I got a lot of Ken Walker just because I think Pete's going to run the ball. He's going to force it. And like, do you think, would you, if gun to your head, would you bet on Penny being healthy in week 15 through 17?
No.
I know, of course you wouldn't. I like him. I want him to be healthy. I think he's an exciting player. I'm getting some of him too, but like, I think there's a better chance than not that Ken Walker is the bell cow for the playoff weeks. So if you could get him in the 10th, 11th round, like that should be a print fest,
Man, he's gonna his ADP is gonna plummet after this news. I would expect now is the time. Like to your point though, as news comes out in the next couple weeks about him getting healthy again and practicing again, his ADP will probably shoot back up to right around 100, so round 8, round 9.
Yeah,
but
you gotta surf the ADP waves because a lot of the stuff that moves this stuff is just overreactions because it's beat writers have a job to do. They're reporting. They need to print an article each day, so they're reporting stuff that might not be that big of a deal in reality, but it's going to move ADP because we have nothing to go off of because there's no actual other than maybe the guys playing a series or two in the preseason. Like George, look at what happened to George Pickens, Isaiah Pacheco, Romeo Dobbs. These guys are moving up 5 rounds a day in ADP. And like whether you believe it or not or want to invest in it, like that's what's happening. So
I think I should have to go back and look. I want to say George Pickens went like round 5 or 6 in my draft yesterday. I just did like one of those $3 contests just to get a gauge on some of the ADPs as they're shifting. I like to do them every day sort of thing, but that's it. That to me, that's too rich. Okay. let's pivot away from team specific news and let's talk a little bit of strategy, Chris, because any donkey can go and follow ADPs and draft players and generally speaking have an okay draft, right? You can auto pick and have an okay draft. Where you really differentiate your team is based off of your roster construction. So, and I don't want this cop out answer about, it depends on what players fall from it. But generally speaking, when you're approaching your drafts, what sort of like roster construction do you like to have? And what I mean by that for the people is, do you like to pay up for tight end? Do you like to pay up for one of those elite running quarterbacks? Do you like to wait on those position players? Are you a zero RB zealot? Are you a robust RB guy?
I am not at all. I mean, I'll take the occasional zero RB team, but like if you looked at my numbers, I have very few zero RB teams.
Yeah,
I think less so this year, just because I really like the second round. Like I said, almost every second round that I can, I'm taking either. I think there's 4 really good backs in the second round, whether it's Saquon, who's probably not going to be in the second round for long, Swift, Javonte Williams, and Aaron Jones. Like I'm leaving almost every second round with one of those 2 guys. So I have hardly any zero RB this year. I'm taking, and then in the first round, like I think the top 5 is pretty is pretty solid. Like McCaffrey, JT, whatever side of the argument you're on with that, and then the 3 stud receivers, whatever order you want to put them: Kupp, Jefferson, and Chase. So anytime I'm in the top 5, I'm getting one of those. So I think a lot of times, like I leave the first 2 rounds with the decision made for me of how I'm going to construct my builds.
Do you have what's your take on Leonard Fournette? Would you classify him, or you're?
I've got less. I'm underweight Lenny, which now he's not overweight anymore. But I think when for like the brief 2 weeks where he was fat and he was like falling into like the mid third, like late third round, he was probably a buy. But this is just like 2 guys that I'm underweight on just on gut feel, and I know the numbers don't back it up. Are Lenny and Connor. Because I just think they're not like those are guys that ran hot as the sun last year with touchdowns, with health, and just veterans with a lot of wear that like there's something that just gut feel. I don't feel they're going to be able to replicate it. So I have less Lenny. Like this is like math would hate me on both of these guys, but I'm underweight on both of those too.
Yeah, I don't think I have a lot of James Conner for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. I mean, you talk about your classic dead zone RB. I mean, dead zone you can classify it as what, mid round 3, and that's right around where James Conner is going. Now, I've got a few shares of him. If he falls to me late round 3, I'm okay with it, but I don't have a lot of that. I like Leonard Fournette. If I'm picking at the early start, so say I get picked 2, 3, or 4, and I end up going with one of the wide receivers, whether it be Jefferson or Kupp or something like that. A lot of the times the running backs you already named are off the board. Yeah. And so Leonard Fournette's staring at me in the face, and I'm like, it's really between him and Javonte. Yeah. And I generally am leaning Leonard Fournette above Javonte just because Melvin Gordon is good. I like Melvin Gordon. He's a guy that I'm targeting late in drafts because I think he's good. Problem is Javonte is unbelievable, but
I love Javonte, and if I'm in drafts where I don't get Javonte, I have no problem taking Melvin Gordon where he goes at ADP. Yeah. Because I think he is going to have a role, but I think Javonte is a special player. Like that dude, just when you watch him, he jumps off the screen. The analytics back it up. I think he led the NFL in like broken tackle percentage last year. So I just think that Russ is going to be the tide that lifts all boats in that offense, and I could see Javonte having a monster season. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. I did a draft recently, and I ended up getting Kelsey. I think he was. I want to say I was right around the end of the first round. So I think I got Kelsey early second round. So I got good value on Kelsey. And then I got my very first and only share of Josh Allen because he fell to me in the 4th round.
Wow.
After that, though, when I was looking at my team buildup, I felt like I was a little bit shallow. Like I didn't have that, like one of those top 2 or 3 stud position players at wide receiver or running back. You talked about you do a lot of Kelsey Mahomes stacks. How are you feeling about your drafts with the other position players? Are there some guys you're targeting a little bit later that you feel comfortable that can kind of make up that value?
When on those stacks you're saying on the Kelsey like Mahomes?
Yeah.
Like I think there's a lot. I think receiver is really deep. Like I have no problem. Like I think 2 guys that I'm way overweight on. Well, there's 3 really. Is Eli Moore for the Jets. I'm not worried about who's the quarterback. I think they'd be better off with Flacco, honestly, or Mike White for Eli. I think he's going to produce with whoever the quarterback is in there, and he tends to go in the 6th round. Kadarius Toney in the 7th round, who's an injury risk and is, a risk to like wear the wrong cleats or do something dumb, but he's just an electric talent. Like those dudes, like if Kadarius Toney plays 17 games, I wouldn't be shocked if he's like a top 7 or 8 receiver this year. Like he's that guy that can produce from that range. That he has that in his range of outcomes. And then I think Treylon Burks is just a stupid value. So like I'm not worried. Like if I want to get a stud receiver, I'm never passing on a Cup, Jefferson, or Chase in the top 5. If in the top picks 3, if I get picks 3 through 5, but I'm very comfortable like just dominating those middle rounds with receiver and feel like I can make it up when I take a Kelsey or Mahomes early.
That's good. I mean, it's not one of those things where I push for it, but when Kelsey falls to me right around that 1-2 turn, I find myself getting some shares. And Mark Andrews falls sometimes to the end of the 2nd round.
He does, yeah. So what do you think? Do you think Isaiah Likely is going to cut into his? Because he's been getting a lot of hype lately, and I think there's probably like. He's like Mark Andrews is the one there. Like he's an absolute stud, but that it kind of gave me a little bit of a pause. I don't know if I should take it in any way seriously or not.
Honestly, Isaiah Likely, from what I remember with my profile when I was doing the rookie profiles, he doesn't really move the needle. He's still a rookie, and he doesn't worry me. I'm just trying to pull up to see if I can see how many times I ran into 2 tight end sets. So I don't have that data here, but I could see the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, they're going to be shifting back more towards those the running the ball more. So they're probably going to have more of those 2 tight ends sets. I could see Isaiah Likely being more that inline tight end for blocking, where Mark Andrews is going to go and catch the rock. Like
on the topic of the Ravens, 2 quick questions for you.
Yeah.
Are you buying the Dobbins dip now? Because I've been getting him a little bit in the 6th round, even. Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of exposure to him, so I'm playing around with my tiers right now, and so I've got J.K. Dobbins. Well, I have him just after A.J. Dillon, so I have him as my RB25. So basically, I've got that tier of Josh Jacobs and Antonio Gibson together. I'm not buying all the BS about Antonio Gibson. I think he just pissed off Rivera somehow, and that's what's making him run with the punt unit. But I still like Antonio Gibson there, and then it's that next tier of A.J. Dillon, J.K. Dobbins, Tony Pollard.
I really like AJ Dillon. I've got a lot of AJ Dillon.
Yeah, AJ Dillon I like a lot for probably the same reasons as you. J.K. Dobbins, love him as a talent. The problem is he's obviously coming off the injury.
Yeah.
But they also don't pass the ball that much to him. So, I mean, he's a fair value. Look, if you fade, say you go one of these elite tight ends early, or you go wide receiver heavy, and then you go and get a quarterback, and you need a running back, like it's like that Mendoza line where you just need to get an RB2. Yeah, I'm okay with J.K. Dobbins as my RB2 because when he's on the field, man, he's absolutely electric. I'm just really worried about the fact that I'm not confident he's going to be on the field in the first month, and then you're not going to cut J.K. Dobbins, right? Like there's no way you're going to cut him during the waiver wire period. So he might be just a body, and then running backs, like we see it already. Like Elijah Mitchell, he's hurt. Penny was out. Walker's been hurt. So like these running backs just are so injured already that I'm probably more inclined to take, if I'm going to take an injured player, we always don't take injured players. If I'm going to take one, it's probably going to be the wide receiver, and I'm probably going to fade J.K. Dobbins. So I don't love it. I don't love it.
One of the Ravens thing. Do you have any feel for who the number 2 receiver is going to be there? Is it Duvernay? Is it Proche or Wallace?
Tyler Wallace sucks. James Prochet is okay. I think it's going to be Devin Duvernay, man. He's got the wheels. I think he's going to play the slot, but it's going to be probably what? Mark Andrews, 23% target share. It's going to be Rashad Bateman, 23% target share. And then it's going to be a bunch of other little guys that frankly aren't going to be fantasy relevant. Duvernay is a guy that I'm taking a shot on late in a lot of drafts just because he is so cheap. I actually got him on my Scott Fishbowl contest, and I was pretty happy about that just because he is so damn quick.
Yeah, he's a guy who could just bust a 60-yard bomb out and hit your optimal lineup like 2 or 3 times there.
You're golden. I'm looking at here. He's got a 4.39 40-yard dash, so he's quick as all hell. I think so I don't know if you ever listened to Roster Watch. Alex Dunlap.
I do, yeah. I think they're
was
really good.
Yeah, Duvernay was. I think he went to high school around where Alex is. Alex is in Austin,
Texas.
And he was he was a track star, and he's just a freaking athlete, man. So if I'm going to take a shot on a wide receiver 2 in that offense, it's definitely going to be Duvernay. We even saw it on special teams last year, right? So
yeah,
you like that.
I've got a ton of Bateman. I've been all over Bateman this year.
Yes.
5th, 6th round. I think that's you're getting a wide receiver 1 in a good offense. And he's another one. That's why I'm comfortable going running backs and, a tight end early when there's guys like that in the 5th, 6th round that I think can produce at a 3rd, 4th round level.
Yeah. So if you have an early pick, and I've done this actually, and Mark Andrews does fall to you at the end of the 2nd round, you can go boom, boom, and get Lamar Jackson and Rashad Bateman all in your first 5 rounds. And that would be, it's kind of disgusting in a good way.
Oh, yeah. Lamar has that. I mean, we've seen Lamar do it. We've seen Lamar have that season that wins you everything. So, and he looks fantastic. He's bulked up. He's played for a new contract. I don't have enough Lamar. I want to get more.
Yeah.
I've been by no means fading him. I've been getting my shares when I can, but that's someone in the next few weeks I want more exposure to.
Oh, man, not to get into the contract talk, but I just don't know what the hell he's doing. I just don't
How do
get
you
it,
not
man.
have an agent? I don't know. Just pay the whatever percent it is and let them figure that out for you. I don't know.
I think the latest thing is he came to the Ravens and he basically said, I want Deshaun Watson's contract.
Well, how could he settle for anything less than Deshaun Watson's contract? This guy's won an MVP and has no sexual assaults pending.
Yeah, the problem with the Watson contract is it was just completely unprecedented and it was just a stupid contract.
Yeah. It's
so
the Christian Kirk contract just changed the market. Not that Christian Kirk has anything like Deshaun Watson's, but that contract made every receiver in the league pissed off and saying, I have to make more than Christian Kirk. And they all got it pretty much to a man. They all got paid, whether it's DK, McLaurin, all of them. They all got their contracts.
Wow. So. Unless you're Deontay Johnson, who got, 2 years at $18 million, which was
took
just
a little bit of a discount there.
Total discount. Man, Steelers, they probably just said, look at this George Pickens tape. We love you, Deontay. We love you.
But we got the guy.
We got George Pickens because the Patriots and many other teams decided to pass on the guy. Okay, so the last thing before we get you out of here, Chris, I just want to know, is there any player that we haven't talked about that you feel you need to get on tape, player that you're either super high on or super low on before we get out of here?
Super low on. Let me see. I have no Josh Jacobs. I just think that's going to be a committee, and I know he's falling now, but I think that's going to be a committee. I think that McDaniels has always been a committee guy, and I think they just have too many chefs in that kitchen. Amir Abdullah is decent, Kenyon Drake is decent, Zamir White was a 5-star coming out of high school and has looked really good so far. So I've got absolutely zero Josh Jacobs. Trying to think who else. I'm scared now that I'm underweight Mike Thomas because he's looked so good, but I don't think I'm going to buy in at the higher price. Who do I have a ton of? I've just been hammering that middle round of receivers, like we said, Kadarius Toney, Bateman, Elijah Moore, and you know what I think is sneaky. I think the Jaguars are underpriced. I think there's a big, you see a lot of times in these drafts, if I miss on all the QBs that I want to stack, all the running, I was getting a ton of Trey Lance when he was, going in the 9th round, but now when people believe that Jimmy G might still be a problem, but when I miss now, if I miss on Lance, Russ, Dak, whoever, Trevor Lawrence, I think, is going to have a lot better season than people realize. And I just think that the difference between a competent like Doug Peterson, who can run an offense, run an NFL franchise, has respect of the locker room, as opposed to Urban Meyer. And even though the receivers they brought in aren't stars, but I think Zay Jones is pretty good. And you can get him in the 17th, 18th round. Like I've got a lot of Zay Jones. Like it's just cheap. Like if I'm stacked at running back and wide receiver and miss on quarterback, I have no problem going Trevor Lawrence and then stacking him late with like Zay Jones as like my 8th receiver, or like Evan Ingram, who people hate because he drops a lot of passes, but he's still pretty talented and he's essentially free as like, you know, a 16th round tight end or something, you know? So I think the Jags are going to be a little better offensively than people realize.
There you go. And don't fade the Jags and don't fade Travis Etienne. So that's it, Chris. You made it.
Got a ton of him, ton of Etienne. He's one of my highest known players too.
That's the right answer. Of course, you guys can follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Felicetta. Go over to dfsarmy.com. Go to the season-long fantasy football tab right at the very top of the page and check out some of Chris's content. You can also follow my content there if you like to dabble in that sort of thing. We got the draft kit. It's live. It's for our VIP members. Same link if with the season-long fantasy football. You can also get Geek's free fantasy football rankings. Mine's behind the paywall, but with the draft kit, you get player write-ups. You get positional tiers. You get overall rankings. You get cross-positional tiers, which now include auction. And very shortly, I'm going to be adding the Superflex ranking sheet. So go check it out.
Just launched a $3 Superflex tournament with no rake tonight. It'll probably be filled before you go to bed, but if you want to just cheap and have some fun with some Superflex best ball, use our promo code DFS Army and get in there. Just fire out some Superflex best ball. Use Shades rankings. Have you done any Superflex best ball yet?
I haven't actually. No.
They had a contest they had like a $5 contest. I think it was $5 or $10 contest.
Yeah.
I did maybe like 30 entries into, and it's fun. It's different. It's very different because people don't value quarterback enough. Like people are scared to be taking like, you know, Kirk Cousins when I don't know, like Amon-Ra St. Brown's still on the board and stuff. And it takes people a while to adjust. So if you get your quarterbacks early, I think you could be advantaged in that.
That's interesting. You know, it's funny. I spend so much time building the content for one QB leagues. I don't play in a single one quarterback league. Everything that I play in is super flex. So I probably should get a few of those reps in before I start drafting.
I've got one left. My first fantasy league that started with my college buddies in 1999. Like that's the only one left that is one quarterback. Everything else is super flex too. So
beautiful, beautiful, man. All right, guys. So go check out all of our content over at dfsarmy.com. For Chris, I'm Flex Shane, and we are the Bold Calls Fantasy Football Show.